Today, I'm working with a Fimo professional clay. It's the True Color system with these beautiful, vibrant colors, and it's a wonderful artist quality clay. I've preconditioned these, and I've gone ahead and cut them out. Now, perhaps you've seen the Fire Mountain Gems and Beads video on Skinner blending. Skinner blending, for those of you who aren't familiar, is the gradient technique for blending 2 or more colors of clay. So the basic version just features 2 colors, but in this one we're actually going to work with 5 colors. You see 3 colors here, but we're going to add one in a minute, but then we'll introduce a 5th color. So what I've done is I've rolled my clay out on the thickest setting of my pasta machine. So you need to know what number that is. It varies from machine to machine. And then I've cut a series of triangles. So these triangles are different than what we do for the basic Skinner blend. But as you can see, I've got 2 isosceles triangles that I've blunted on the ends and 2 right angle triangles that also were blunted on the ends, meaning I cut off the top pointed corners. And I used, as I said, clay rolled out on the thickest setting of my clay machine. I've doubled the layers. If you don't work with enough clay, you're not going to get a good size sheet going through your machine. So I'm going to abut these one next to the other, and these don't have to be perfect. Don't worry about that. And I'm even just going to smush them together a little, so they form one rectangle. The goal here is to get them to stick together on the first pass of the pasta machine. So what we're going to do is lift them up very gingerly and put them in, and the machine is on the largest setting. So even if we have to cram them in there, and we're going to roll them with all the colors touching the rollers. So this is where Skinner blending is tricky for a lot of people. So it's a little thick this time, so it takes a little bit of elbow grease to get it through. So you can see what's happened here. They've stretched out quite a bit. Now, here's where people have problems with the Skinner blend. So I'm going to share with you a very valuable tip. All you need to do is remember this, and you'll never have a problem making your Skinner blends. When you fold it, and you have to fold it and pass it through the machine repeatedly, several passes. Now that can be anywhere from 10 to 30 passes to get a true, complete gradient blend. We're going to do something a little different today. But when you fold it, every fold as you're blending, the colors on the outer edge need to be identical, okay? So that's tip number 1. So if you're seeing different colors touching each other when you fold, you're folding it incorrectly, and you're just going to end up blending it until it becomes one solid color instead of a gradient. So again, the outer colors, no matter what colors they are always identical, okay? Here's tip number 2. You know you folded it correctly when you're doing your blending passes when all the colors touch the length of the rollers. If only one color touches the rollers as you put it through, again, you're doing it incorrectly. All colors touch the rollers, so that's going to happen when the colors on the side match. But before I go to the next step, I'm going to do something a little different. I've made little clay shreds to add a little visual interest, so we're going to just dump those in there. That's our 4th color. Bringing that in, and we'll spread them out a little bit on one side. This is going to add some visual interest to your blend. Now, this is an option. You don't have to do it. It just kind of makes things a little bit more exciting. All right, so we're just going to press those down in there. Now I'm going to do my fold back to the pasta machine. Now, make sure all the clay touches the rollers, and then we're going to go through the machine, and we're still working on the largest setting. Now remember when I said you can be 20 to 30 passes? It depends on the colors. If I'm doing white and yellow and just blending a gradient between those 2 colors, 9 or 10 passes usually gets me there. If I'm blending white to black, I usually need 30 passes. You don't have to count how many passes. You know when you're happy with the blend. You'll see it happening. But I'm doing something a little different here. I'm only going to blend with a few passes, so it's not going to blend all the way to a gradient, a true gradient. It's going to be more of a fractured gradient. So here's a second pass on the largest machine, on the largest setting of my machine. And again, color to color, and then all my colors touch my roller. Okay, so we're seeing a little bit of blending going on here. It's starting to happen, the magic's starting to happen, but we're not really seeing it. But the reason I'm doing so few passes is because I'm trying to get a striated look between the colors. Now with my clay blade, I'm going to just fold this in half and double it, because the longer my blend is, whether it's a full blend or a partial blend, the longer it is, the more interest you're going to get. Or if you're rolling it just into a straight jelly roll cane without any layers into it, it's going to be a softer, more gradual blend. But this is more of a special effect. It's a nautical looking one, and I don't mean like navy, like a nautilus shell. So I'm going to cut this in half and stack one over the other with the colors being identical. See what I mean? Maybe you can see a little bit of that striation in there, that's from not blending all the way. Now this time I want to lengthen it. So I'm going to roll it the opposite way that we blend. So only one color touches the rollers. I want to lengthen this because we're going to line it with our 5th color. So back onto we're still on the largest setting of the pasta machine. Make sure that your machine is very clean underneath. You don't want to pick up any contaminants or crumbles of clay that might be from a previous project. So this is nice and long. Look at that. That's really long. And look at all that beautiful color. So I'm going to start to line it, and we're going to cut a straight edge. And we need a contrasting color of clay. Now usually when I do this type of cane, I like to use white or black, but we're going to use black because I think it's a little more interesting. And I've already conditioned and rolled out my black on a very, very thin setting of the machine. So I'm just going to lay some of it right down over the top here and smooth it out so there's no air bubbles. And let's bring it back into here. We need to clean up this edge because we need more black. You can never have enough black. And we're going to cut that off there and flip it over. And we'll trim away this. We're going to use that again to get more of that black. This is going to make a nice big cane. I could do dozens and dozens and dozens of projects. So as we said, this is a Millefiori cane. So if you don't speak Italian or you're not really familiar with the concept, it's Italian for 1,000 flowers. Now we're not making a flower pattern, obviously, but what that means is if you make a big enough cane, theoretically you could get 1,000 flowers out of it, 1,000 slices, if that's the type of cane we were designing. So now we're going to take this black here and we're going to roll it out again, starting on a larger setting and working our way down. And we're going to get thinner and thinner, and we're just going to continue to line this. So we're on the thinnest setting here, so let's take it down just a little bit. Sometimes your clay can tear on the very thinnest settings, and that's okay. We don't need to worry about that. We're just going to make this longer and continuing lining as we go. And we may not use the whole length. That's okay. You can save that for another project. So we're just going to abut that up into there, right on the seam to seam. And we'll just stop our jelly roll there. Maybe we'll just make a second jelly roll out of this little leftover piece here. So I'm just going to chop that off, set that aside, and flip this over so we can trim off that excess. And then we start the roll, which is really, really fun. Now, you don't have to start it the way I'm going to, and you can go light to dark or dark to light, but I like that I ended on a different color than I'm going to start with. But you can do an angled cut here, which gives a real nice start to your nautical jelly roll. So I cut at a 45-degree angle with my blade, and then let's turn it towards the camera. I'm just going to start with my fingers folding that edge up, folding that black in there, and that's going to give us a nice tight rotation in our nautical cane. And then we're just going to keep coaxing that up. Clay is very responsive to the warmth of your hands and after it's been conditioned and rolled. And now let's turn it this way. We're going to just continue to roll with light pressure and just keep going and going. We don't want to trap any air in there. And then I'm going to finish it off by cutting it the same way I started. I'm going to cut this end towards me at a 45-degree angle so that it wraps, the black wraps all the way around. Again, it's not something you have to do, it's just a preference. And then we've got our jelly roll right there. Doesn't look like much yet, but wait. We're going to reduce. Now this is the second place people get into trouble with when they're new to Millefiori caning. Air is the enemy here. Air trapped in your cane means you're going to have distortion and the cane can fall apart as you reduce it. So we're going to reduce it holding our fingers like a square, all right? and we're going to squeeze in the middle. We're going to kind of block it. And you're going to turn and rotate it and squeeze and squeeze. And what that's doing is that's forcing any air that might be in there out towards the ends. And as you can see, I'm getting a bit of a hourglass shape. So when that starts to happen, I can start doing the same thing, squeezing and rotating, and rolling it out towards the edge. Now when you do Millefiori caning, you're always going to have some distortion on the ends, and there's lots of uses for that scrap clay, but don't worry about it. If you do your reduction right, you won't have a lot of that. We don't do a lot of rolling in most, for round canes in Millefiori. We want to get it mostly the size and shape we want before we refine it, but I'm just going to go ahead and demonstrate for you just a little light rolling against your work surface with the palm of your hand to smooth it out. And let's take a look at what we have. So one of the things I love about the Fimo Professional brand is look at how I'm cutting this. Most clays, right after you work with them, are very soft and warm, and they tend to collapse in on themselves. So you'll often hear people say, let them rest for a while, like for a few hours or a few days. But I find that with the Fimo clays, I can usually cut and slice into it with little or no distortion immediately after I've worked with it. But now, for the magic moment, let's see what we've got. And that is our jelly roll. Now what's cool in there, we don't see so much of the white, but that helped with the striation, and that helped kind of have that crossover blend of colors. So we don't have that full blend, but we've got this lovely, beautiful color. All right, I know what you're thinking. That's pretty cool, but what do I do with it? Well, stay tuned. We're going to have in the Resource Center another video of how you can make jelly roll jewelry with your jelly roll cane. Thanks for joining me today in the Fire Mountain Gems and Beads Design Studio.